Today's lesson is 16-5, and the name of the lesson is Making Bar Graphs. You've learned how to read a bar graph. Today you'll learn how to make a bar graph. How does a bar graph make it easy to compare data? Our students today looked at this bar graph and saw that you can really easily tell which school supplies were sold the most and which school supplies weren't selling as well at the school store. Okay, here's a problem we made a bar graph of today. The problem says Yolanda, Dawn, Benita, and Adam kept track of how many pages they read in the science book on Monday. Yolanda read 25 pages, Dawn read 15 pages, Benita and Adam each read 20 pages. And then the question asks us to use this information to make a bar graph. So we took it step by step as a class. We started with a title. What could we make for a title? Well, if we look back at the problem, it says they kept track of how many pages they read in the science book on Monday. So using that information, let's write pages read in the science book as our title, because that just makes sense. Our next job is to choose a unit that each grid line will represent. In other words, should we make each of these lines count for 1 page read, or 2, or 5, or 10? What would be the best number to choose? We could make them stand for 5 pages read each. 5 pages read is a good number to choose because it's a multiple of all these totals are a multiple of 5. We can use 5 and then we're going to count by 5s all the way up, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And then we're also going to include labels. And what we mean by labels is explain what those numbers are counting, number of pages read. You can write the letter for each name down here. Y stands for Yolanda, D stands for Dawn, B stands for Benita, A stands for Adam. And then you need a label that tells us what those are standing for. Those are standing for names, so that needs to be on your bar graph as well. We looked at a couple different graphs today and we asked ourselves whether or not these show the same information. One graph sure looks small and one graph looks big, but yes, they do show the same information. The only difference between these bar graphs is that one has the unit of 5 for each. Looks like they're counting by 5s here, and one's counting by 2s. If we're counting by smaller numbers, that makes our graph look taller. Okay, what other units could each grid line represent? Well, we said we could make them each represent 1 or 2 or 5 or even 10, and we talked about how that would change the way the graph looks. Last thing to do is shade in the bars to show the data. So students' graphs look like this. We asked ourselves, could the bars go side to side? Yes, they could. It would just mean that you'd have to write the names over here. So I would see Y, D, B, A written here, and the number of pages down below. I'd see 5, 10, 15, 20, and so on going this way. We can just switch these, that's fine. Also, we asked why the number stops at 30. Some people wanted to keep making numbers all the way up to the top of the page, but we really didn't have to. Since number 1 student, Yolanda, read 25 pages, we don't need it to go past 25 or 30 because there's just no numbers that go that big, so it's just kind of wasted our time there to make it go up higher. Who read the most? Students know that Yolanda read the most because her bar is the tallest. How much did they read all together? Students knew that you would just have to add all 4 totals, 25 plus 15 plus 20 plus 20, in order to find out how much they read all together. Okay, we looked at this one as well, and we talked about what we could use for a title. This question's asking us to make a bar graph from this information. For our title, we could stick with the title that they have here. People who signed up for classes, maybe. Choose a title, that's what we did. Choose the scale. In other words, how much should each grid line count for? We've got the numbers 6, 10, 7, 9. Should we make each grid line count for 1, or 2, or 3, or 5? Really, there's a lot of different correct answers, but just think about what makes the most sense. What number multiplies up to these totals? I think 2 might be a good choice. Now set up the graph with the scale, so that means each unit line, each grid line counting for a unit of 2. Label the classes, so that means you're writing the words chess, guitar, painting, writing. Write the labels, so say that that's the classes. Labels also mean writing number signed up next to the numbers here. And then of course draw the bars and shade them in. When we're all done, it should look like this. We have a title, People Signed Up for Classes.